Ever wondered how one single event could plunge the entire world into chaos, redrawing maps and changing the course of history forever?
It all began on a seemingly ordinary day, September 1st, 1939.
This was the day Germany invaded Poland, a spark that ignited the deadliest conflict in human history, World War II.
Imagine the world holding its breath as nations were forced to choose sides.
On one side, the Axis powers, a formidable alliance of Germany, Italy, and Japan, driven by ambitions of expansion and ideological dominance. On the other, the Allied powers, a diverse coalition including Britain, France, and later, giants like the Soviet Union, the United States, and China, united by a common goal to halt the aggression. The conflict wasn't just fought on one front.
It was a true world war. In Europe, the skies over Britain turned into a battlefield during the Blitz, as ordinary citizens huddled in shelters, their resilience a beacon of hope against the nightly terror.
Far to the east, the icy streets of Stalingrad became a brutal, grinding meat grinder, a turning point where the seemingly unstoppable German war machine was halted in its tracks by sheer Soviet determination. The battle turned the tide on the Eastern Front, a pivotal moment that began the long, hard push back towards Berlin. Meanwhile, across the globe, the war raged in the vast deserts of North Africa. Tanks clashed under the scorching sun in a desperate struggle for control of vital supply routes and resources.
It was a war of movement and strategy, a different kind of battlefield, but just as crucial to the overall Allied effort. The sands of El Alamein witnessed a decisive victory that pushed the Axis forces out of Africa for good. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941, the war took a dramatic turn.
The surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by the Empire of Japan jolted the United States out of its isolationism.
A date which will live in infamy, as President Roosevelt declared.
This single act of aggression brought the industrial might of America into the Allied fold, fundamentally changing the dynamics of the war in the Pacific and across the world.
The war had now engulfed every major continent, and the stakes had never been higher.
For the people living through it, life was a daily struggle for survival. For a young soldier on the front lines, every sunrise was a gift.
He'd write letters home, his words a thin thread connecting him to the life he'd left behind, his hands calloused from gripping his rifle, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had to do. His determination was forged in the fire of combat, fighting for a future he wasn't sure he'd ever see.
Back home, life was transformed.
A woman, her face etched with a mix of fear and resilience, would listen to the radio for news of her loved ones.
She'd stand in long lines for rationed food, her worn dress a testament to the sacrifices being made on the home front.
She might work in a factory, building the very planes and munitions her husband or brother might be using thousands of miles away. Her strength wasn't measured in battles won, but in her unwavering spirit to keep her family and community together amidst the chaos. These were the ordinary people caught in extraordinary circumstances, their stories forming the true fabric of the war. As the years ground on, the Allies began to plan the most ambitious military operation in history.
The goal, to open a new front in Western Europe and liberate France from occupation.
The date was set.
June 6, 1944, D-Day. Under the command of General Eisenhower, a massive armada of ships, planes, and soldiers crossed the English Channel to storm the heavily fortified beaches of Normandy.
It was a monumental gamble.
The landing craft doors dropped, and young men charged into a storm of machine gun fire. The fight for every inch of sand was ferocious, the cost in lives staggering.
But they held on.
This foothold was the beginning of the end for the Axis powers in Europe.
With the beachhead secured, the long and arduous fight to liberate Europe began.
Allied forces pushed eastward,
fighting through the hedgerows of France, liberating Paris in a joyous celebration, and battling through the harsh winter in the Battle of the Bulge, Germany's last desperate counter-offensive.
Every town liberated was a step closer to victory. The advance was relentless, a testament to the courage of the soldiers on the ground.
Finally, in the spring of 1945, Allied forces from the west met with Soviet forces from the east at the Elbe River.
They had squeezed the Third Reich from both sides.
The final battle was for Berlin itself.
The city was reduced to rubble in a brutal street-by-street fight.
On April 30th, with Soviet soldiers closing in on his bunker, Adolf Hitler took his own life.
A week later, on May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered.
Victory in Europe Day, or V-Day, was celebrated with massive relief and joy across the continent.
The war in Europe was over, but the world was not yet at peace. The war in the Pacific still raged with terrifying intensity. The island-hopping campaign saw some of the most brutal fighting of the entire conflict.
From Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, as Marines and soldiers fought against a deeply entrenched and fanatically devoted Japanese military.
The battles for these small, volcanic islands were incredibly costly, with each victory won at a great human price.
Raising the flag on Mount Suribachi became an iconic symbol of this struggle and sacrifice.
As the Allies prepared for a potential invasion of the Japanese mainland, an invasion that was predicted to cost millions of lives on both sides, a new, terrible power was unleashed.
In a decision that remains debated to this day, the United States dropped atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima on August 6th and Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945.
The devastation was absolute, unlike anything the world had ever seen. Faced with this unimaginable power and the Soviet Union's declaration of war, Japan finally announced its surrender. On September 2, 1945, the formal surrender ceremony took place aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay.
World War II was officially over.
The 6 years of conflict had left an indelible scar on the planet. Over 70 million people had perished. Entire cities were destroyed, and economies were shattered.
The world was fundamentally changed. The war gave rise to the United Nations, born from the ashes with the hope of preventing such a catastrophe from ever happening again. It also marked the beginning of the Cold War, a new kind of conflict between the two new superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union.
The legacy of World War II is complex and profound, a stark reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the heights of human courage. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through one of history's most defining moments.
It's a story of immense tragedy, but also one of incredible bravery and resilience.
If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into history.
We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious,